Squinting through bright days? That's a no. Struggling with glare? Also, no. What about sunglasses over regular glasses? Big no. But prescription sunglasses from Pearl Vision? That's a huge yes. They're a must-have for enjoying the sun in style. Choose from designer frames like Ralph Lauren, Coach, Michael Kors, and more. Arrange an eye exam at pearlvision.ca and get 40% off lenses. Some restrictions and exclusions may apply. See participating stores for details.
Okay, if you dig straight down past the center of the Earth, are you still digging down or up?
Down.
But at some point you're going away from the middle. Back up.
Down. You're heading deeper.
Sure, but at some point you're going up, right?
Gravity says it's down.
Gravity! Dude, you failed science class.
C- is not a fail.
A short phone call can help reduce loneliness. That's why Belle believes that whatever you talk about, just talk.
I'm so glad you called, man. Even if you don't know you're up from down.
It's up.
This Week in Gaming with Naomi Kyle.
Hello everyone, welcome back to This Week in Gaming. I'm Naomi Kyle, and what a big week in games it was. With Summer Game Fest, the Xbox Game Showcase, and PlayStation State of Play all taking place over the weekend, we've got all of this week's gaming news. So, let's get started. Last week marked the biggest week of the year for video games. Not only did the Nintendo Switch 2 launch, but we had 3 massive showcases from Microsoft, Sony, and Jeff Keighley's Summer Game Fest. Lock in, because some of these announcements will blow your socks off. Sony kicked off the festivities with their State of Play, and it did not disappoint. A new trailer for Luminous Arise was revealed with huge Tetris Effect vibes. Even more free DLC for Astrobot was revealed by the developer, including a new Astrobot-themed DualSense controller coming later this year. JRPG fans rejoiced when it was revealed that Final Fantasy Tactics is getting remastered. They showed off Capcom's Pragmata again with some new gameplay and a 2026 release. It was also revealed that Ghost of Yotei is getting its own State of Play in July. Metal Gear Solid Delta showed the Cobra unit and confirmed Snake vs. Monkey, which is coming out August 28th. Neo 3 was announced with samurai and ninja combat styles, and there's a demo live now. And finally, we got a release date for Silent Hill F, which drops September 25th. We got to see the official trailer for 007 First Light, which tells Bond's origin story and is coming out in 2026. They also revealed Mortal Kombat Legacy Collection, which bundles together a bunch of the Mortal Kombat classic games with some documentaries out later this year. Marvel Token Fighting Souls was revealed as well, a flashy new tag fighter from Arc and Marvel. It looks super fun. And finally, Ninja Gaiden Ragebound is coming out July 31st. At Summer Game Fest, Jeff Keighley took the stage and had some announcements of his own. Kicking off the show was a gory, headbanging trailer for The Mortal Shell 2, a sequel to the death metal-inspired Souls-like RPG. The Lies of P Overture expansion was shadow dropped. Game of Thrones is making a comeback with their new game, Game of Thrones War of Westeros, where players can take control and change the series' controversial ending. Canadians rejoice. Local Toronto hero Scott Pilgrim is making his triumphant return in the new co-op brawler Scott Pilgrim EX. Sonic Racing Cross Worlds introduced new drivers outside of the Sonic universe like Hatsune Miku, Ikeban Kasuga from Yakuza, Joker from Persona, and in a surprise twist nobody saw coming, Minecraft Steve was announced as a racer. LEGO announced an adorable 2-player co-op adventure called LEGO Voyages. I can't wait to play this one. Dying Light the Beast revealed a new trailer and announced that the game is just a few months away when it releases on August 22nd. One of my favorite announcements was for the quirky puppet boxing game, Felt the Boxing. You heard that right? It's a totally bizarro concept where you play as a puppet training to be a boxing champ. The puppet models are rendered using Unreal Engine 5, which is quickly proving that anything is possible with this engine. The biggest surprise at the event is a new game marking the return of the Wu-Tang Clan. Wu-Tang Rise of the Deceiver is an action co-op game where you help Ghostface Killah rescue fallen members of the Wu-Tang Clan. The game is developed by Brassline Entertainment, which friend of the show, Danny Pena, worked on as the media outreach. Congratulations, guys. Microsoft closed out the most important week of the year for video games with a showcase of their own, and they brought the heat this time. Starting off strong, The Outer Worlds 2 has an official release date. Mark your calendars for October 29th. In hardware news, Microsoft has officially unveiled its long-rumored handheld PC. Say hello to the Xbox Ally and the Xbox Ally X, both launching just in time for the holiday season. Also in 2026, prepare for the vampire fantasy action RPG Blood of the Dawnwalker, and yes, Super Meat Boy 3D is officially real and coming the same year. A big return for action fans, Ninja Gaiden 4 has a date. It's slashing onto consoles on October 21st. Indiana Jones isn't done adventuring just yet. The DLC, The Order of the Giants for Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, drops on September 4th. And in a shocker, Game Freak is developing for Xbox. Their new title, Beast of Reincarnation, arrives in 2026. Obsidian also revealed Grounded 2, the sequel to their backyard survival hit. Even better, it's out in just a few weeks, launching July 29th. Now, when it comes to Pokemon, that would be a Nemo, and it's catching eyeballs with a release slated for 2026 as well. And yes, Gears of War is back and has an official release date. Gears of War Reloaded lands on August 26th. Comic fans will love this one. Invincible Versus is a new fighting game based on the hit series, arriving later in 2026. In a jaw-dropping move, Microsoft shadow dropped Final Fantasy XVI for Xbox and confirmed Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade is coming to the platform this winter. Double Fine, the makers of Psychonauts' latest title, is as quirky as ever. Keeper puts players in the role of a sentient lighthouse and launches on October 17th. And finally, to cap off the showcase, Xbox revealed the next installment in their flagship shooter franchise. Call of Duty Black Ops 7 is officially on the way. So that's all the news that came out of the biggest week in games. It's now time to chat with our guest, Destin Legarie. He joins us to chat about, well, everything that got announced at this year's Summer Games Fest, the Xbox Showcase, and Sony's State of Play.
Select game mode. Multiplayer.
Hey, Destin, welcome back.
Hi, Naomi. Good to see you again.
Good to see you too. We just ran into each other at Summer Games Fest. First of all, what a crazy week we have. This is like basically E3 now. That's what it feels like.
Yes, it sure does. It's all the big events all in one place, and I did kind of miss it. So it's nice to have this moment.
Right. It feels like there's some E3 energy seeping through on this 1 week of all the gaming announcements happening. But let's start off with the one that started the whole thing, which was the Sony State of Play presentation. What were some of the things that stood out to you from their presentation? Was there anything that you were like, okay, I'm pretty hyped for this? And then also I want to know your rating afterwards, like how you would rate it hype level wise.
Yeah, from State of Play, honestly, not a ton of jump out big games for me. The climbing game really stood out to me out of all the properties that we got to see during the PlayStation State of Play. And I'm excited to learn more about Gosu Yote. But in terms of what they showed, a lot of people were excited for the smaller games, but not so much the overall presentation. I like games though. So, I mean, I enjoy that aspect of it. What did you like at that one?
For me, it was the Astrobot DLC. I almost 100 completed the Astrobot, the full game at the start, but I couldn't get that very last level. But yeah, the Astrobot DLC, I'm excited to hop back in. You know, like it's a reason for me to boot up my PlayStation again. Capcom's Pragmata looked interesting, but everything else, just totally not like up my alley kind of game. Yeah, all in all, I would give it like a 6.5 out of 10.
That sounds
in terms of
good.
Hype level. What about you?
Everything gets a 7 out of 10 from me. No, I'm just kidding. No. There were so many events, like they all start to blend together. So there was the PlayStation event, then there was SGF, and then there was the Xbox event. And as somebody who really likes new tech reveals, and also this last week, the Switch 2 was launched. So
that's right.
All of these events took place like back to back to back. And yeah, I think the PlayStation State of Play event was the I don't want to say least exciting. I feel like that's too harsh, but it wasn't like a big blockbuster set of reveals. It was more like niche feel-good games that we enjoyed, like Astrobot, as you mentioned.
Yeah, I feel like it was something that they were asked, obviously they saw probably Xbox was coming with something. And they're like, well, we need to find something to talk about, right? to make it the Summer Game Fest week. And I feel like they, pulled out what they could. But I'm assuming they'll have another State of Play down the road that's just a bit more bombastic.
They did tease they're going to do Go Coyote this summer, so we will learn more about that game. And there was actually a big theater presentation this last weekend for Death Stranding 2, but the website had broke, so a lot of people, myself included, couldn't get tickets. And then when they showed the audience, it looked like there were still open seats. So I was like, I would have went to this thing, but I couldn't get in.
Right. I did get to go to the I.O. presentation that happened that same first day of Summer Game Fest on Friday. There wasn't much. They showed, of course, the 007 game, the trailer again. That we've all seen. And then they showed the Hitman stuff. So there's going to be new content, I think it is, like part of the Hitman 1, 2, and 3 package. Did you get to see any of that stuff?
So I actually got to talk to some people working on 007 First Light.
Oh, nice. So let's talk about that.
Yeah, that game I'm actually pretty excited about. I like how they're doing sort of their spin on James Bond. They talked about how in the Ian Fleming books, he actually has a scar. So they were sure to implement that.
I was curious about that.
Of their character. Yeah. So I was like, oh, I didn't know that about the Ian Fleming novels. It's nice that you kind of added that sort of nuanced touch to your character. Mm-hmm. And they're also doing their spin on M and Moneypenny and the new character who will be working with Bond, the mentor, so to speak, who thinks he's too much of a loose cannon. He's got to rein him in. But I'm really excited about that one. It seems like the gameplay is going to be pretty solid. You can do stealth or action.
It looks beautiful. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and going to a lot of beautiful destinations, but they were being pretty cagey about giving me more details.
I felt like, to me, it just feels like it's an origin story. It's going to be like, if you want the James Bond origin story, play this game. Mm-hmm. All right, thanks, Destin. We're going to hop over to Games Out this week and be right back.
Games Out this week.
Starting on June 10th, Dune Awakening releases on PC, Mind's Eye ricochets onto the PS5, PC, and Xbox Series X and S, Warhammer 40k Space Marine Crafted Edition invades PC, Xbox Series X and S, and is available day one on Game Pass. On June 11th, Stellar Blade makes the jump from PlayStation to PC. Then on June 12th, Wizard of Legend 2 enchants PS5, PC, and Xbox Series X and S. On June 13th, The Alters crash lands onto PS5, PC, Xbox Series X and S, and is day one available on Game Pass. Five Nights at Freddy's Secret of the Mimic creeps onto the PS5 and PC. And on June 16th, Jex makes his long-awaited return to the Jex trilogy on PS5, PC, Nintendo Switch, and Xbox Series X and S. The Epic Game Store is offering just one free game this week, 2 Point Hospital, which will be available for download from June 12th until the 19th.
Quest complete.
All right, we're back. So, Summer Game Fest. What are some standout games that you saw during Jeff Keighley's presentation to kick off Summer Game Fest?
Yeah, so I'm a big fighting game fan. There were two things that really jumped out to me. Marvel Tokon. It's basically a new version of Marvel vs. Capcom. And also at the Xbox showcase, we also got to see an Invincible fighting game. PlayStation also announced a fight stick that they're creating for fighting games. So it's always nice when we see this big focus on one of my favorite genres. And if you're an old school fighting game fan, they also announced the Mortal Kombat Legacy Collection, which includes a whole bunch of the old Mortal Kombats, I think through 8 or something like that.
Wow.
So it's really nice to know that you're going to have this mega collection of Mortal Kombat games to play. And there's also a whole bunch of just fighting games being focused on right now by the industry.
It seems like that's maybe a shift happening, like less live service, more fighting game. And definitely Summer Game Fest, the presentation for Jeff, he doesn't have all the games that are from the big three, right? So we're going to see maybe like some games that are just not as well known or like that are kind of from new devs. There was a lot of new dev stuff, like stuff from Fictions, like their game Lego Party, and some of their other I think that's what they announced primarily. But the other big one that I wanted to talk about was Wu-Tang Clan. Did you like what they showed for that? Because that kind of came out of nowhere.
Yeah, when they did that reveal, I was very surprised. I was like, no way, they're doing a Wu-Tang Clan game.
I know.
Because it's been forever since they've
Yeah.
done anything with that franchise. So, yeah, I was very surprised by that one, but like in a good way. It was
Yeah.
definitely a fun reveal that I was excited to
Definitely.
see in the presentation.
Yeah, for me, that was a highlight. Dying Light the Beast, I saw, they announced the release date, August 22nd. I'm a Dying Light fan. I love that game. So I didn't get to play it at the show, though. Did you get to play anything on the show? So just to explain for people listening, Summer Game Fest has the opening presentation. Jeff Keighley does a whole, I think it's like a 2-hour presentation. How long was it this year?
Keeley's was about 2 hours and probably some change. I feel like his showcase was just a little bit too long. And I almost wonder if he would benefit from breaking it into like AAA, really large blockbuster stuff, and then the smaller, more niche focus. But I suppose you want audience retention throughout. So
yeah, and you want those games to still get an audience too, right? To like get their time in the spotlight. So I think mixing it up, I understand why he's doing that, but
to answer your question about Dying Light,
right, yeah.
I did get to play Dying Light at SGF the following
the play
day.
days, right? So the play days then kick off after that presentation, and we all get to go as devs to test run and get hands on a lot of games. So yeah, so Dying Light the Beast. Can you talk anything about it?
Yeah, actually, there's no embargo on that one, so
amazing.
I can talk about it. Yeah, it's a pretty fun game. You can go in, and if you played any of the Dying Light games, you can just pick up and go. I needed a little bit of hand-holding from the person doing the demo with me, but I just kind of picked it up, and I remembered how to do all the crazy slides and the parkour and the melee combat, and it was really, really fun. You have like a super ability that you can unleash at some times now where you power up sort of like you would in a game like God of War, and then you can just kind of destroy all the zombies in the immediate vicinity and really, really power up. We got to try out some weapons like the flamethrower, which was very, very strong against the bosses. And, you can use guns, but then you're going to alert all the zombies near you. And it feels like a Dying Light game in a good way. And I had a lot of fun playing it, but I did die to the boss a few too many times. The demos was like, oh, okay, you've played before. You're doing pretty good. And then we got to the boss. And I was like, well, now I'm embarrassed. So, yeah.
We all have those moments, especially when you're trying out a new game, but also don't be too hard on yourself. I'm sure
it's fun though. It's fun though.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. Quickly, anything before we move on to Xbox, because I do want to get to that. Summer Game Fest, play days. Was there anything else that you played that was like, to you, the number one thing that you wanted to play?
Stuff that I got to play. Well, we never talked about the Resident Evil Requiem reveal, but I think that was probably the biggest reveal from the showcase that we got to see. Capcom kind of teased throughout the presentation, and then at the end they're like, "Oh yeah, we actually do have a Resident Evil Requiem trailer."
Of course,
and it's nice to see that they're still working on new Resident Evils and not just the remakes, because that franchise has really been taking off.
Oh, yeah, it's taking off. The remakes are really bringing it back to. Well, I want to get to Xbox because that was, to me, the highlight. I think that they had a really great presentation this year. It was super exciting. I'm sure you got to watch it, so I want to know like what you thought of it and if there were any highlights for you. Yeah,
I mean, I was really, really excited. Just off the top of my head, I actually think that the Final Fantasy news is pretty significant. Somebody I follow online pointed out that you can now play Final Fantasy 1 through the most recent Final Fantasy on Xbox specifically. So that's really, really cool to be able to say that you have all of the Final Fantasy games in one location. And the fact that Final Fantasy 7 specifically finally made the leap, it's a big deal for people who prefer to play on the Xbox platform. And it is nice to see that Square really is working to tear down those barriers in as many ways as they possibly can. However, the bigger news is that Xbox announced a handheld in partnership with ROG, and it's called the ROG Xbox Ally and the ROG Xbox Ally X. I actually got hands-on time with it, and it is very slick. I'm willing to bet it's going to be very expensive, but they're using the Z2 AI processor, which a lot of people have said that's going to wind up in a lot of handhelds because it is so strong and it offers so much more for developers to work with. while I was playing Gears of War Reloaded, it felt perfectly smooth. Like I was able to hit perfect reload, so there's no issues with latency or anything like that. Ergonomically, it feels like you're holding an Xbox controller, which is amazing.
Oh, that's so cool.
And I actually did, during gameplay, jump in to see how performance was doing. You can do that by just tapping the Xbox button. A little menu slides out, and you can sort of go through it and see your friends list. You can see other storefronts like Steam or Xbox or Epic Games Store, or you can check performance. And during gameplay, I was seeing 78 on the GPU utilization and only 15% on the CPU. So they have a lot of headroom to work with, at least with the CPU. And all of that is on top of a version of Windows 11 Home that keeps it running really, really well. That was a big criticism of the previous unit, and there's a lot of buzz about this thing. So
yeah, and it's only slightly smaller than the Steam Deck, and it kind of fits in between the sizes of, if you have the Nintendo Switch 2 and the Steam Deck, it's like right in the middle of that. How does it compare to the Switch 2? I'm sure everyone was talking about that because it just came out. So now we're like entering the era where it's going to be the big three with each their own handheld, and to see who comes out on top. Like Switch is competition this year.
Yeah, the Switch 2 launched with only Mario Kart really as a big launch title. And then they also had, the Legend of Zeldas came over to the Switch 2, and they have a 60 FPS frame rate mode and some other bells and whistles, like you can pair your phone and get guides for the Legend of Zelda games. And I picked those up. I'm really, really excited about it. But people are noticing that Nintendo has gotten really, really locked down with their platform. Mm-hmm. If you want to play online, you need to pay for that. If you want to play old games on your Nintendo Switch 2, you need to be subscribed. And if you're not subscribed, you can no longer access those games. It's a bit of a mixed bag for me. I think Mario Kart, I've seen people that really like it, and I've seen people that feel like it just feels like another Mario Kart that's not really doing anything too advanced or too crazy. So it's an improvement on the original Switch. You are going to need to update it to even play any of your original Switch cartridges, and those are running via emulation, so they will run better and look better, but they are somewhat more locked down than they had been in the past. And their games are more expensive now. Mario Kart, if you're buying the cart version of it, it's $80. Mm-hmm. And I do wonder how, average consumers are going to feel about that when they're kind of hit with sticker shock, not only of the console price or the handheld price, however you want to call the Switch 2, but also the price of all of the other things you're going to need to consider to utilize the platform to fully access all of the features it has.
That's right. The subscriptions alone and everything. Yeah. And speaking of prices too, Outer Worlds 2 is the first Xbox game to be confirmed $80. So yeah, we're seeing this across the board. And again, like I said, it's going to be interesting to see, will Xbox now be the new Switch? It's all going to be switching around.
Yeah, well, with that Xbox ROG Ally X, or however you put the words together, you will.
I say ROG. I don't know if that's right, but
yeah, you're probably right. But you'll have access to Steam and Epic and all of that, and that means you will have access to the PlayStation games that come to PC.
Yeah,
and you'll have access to all the Xbox games, and you'll have access to all the PC games. You can hook that thing up to another device that basically makes it as powerful as a 5090 GPU. So there's a lot of interesting stuff happening in terms of the handheld market and what each of the companies are doing. Like PlayStation has improved the PlayStation Portal, but it's still somewhat locked down in terms of what you're able to do with it. But I have heard good things about what they've done, and they come in at a much cheaper price point. The ROG Xbox Ally X, it's going to be very expensive. Like currently the ROG Ally, it's what, $700, $800. And I don't even know what that is in Canadian, like probably $1,000 Canadian.
That's $1,000 at that point. Yeah.
Yeah. You're looking at a hefty price tag.
I mean, the Switch 2 for Canadians is $630. That's going to be the tough thing. I guess for the price point, the Switch still comes out on top, given that we're assuming, and likely so, the Xbox Ally is going to be way more expensive. Thank you so much, Destin. Have a good rest of your week, and thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks, Naomi.
Destin Legarie is a gaming host on the Destin channel on YouTube. You can follow him on Twitter as well, @Destin Legarie.
Flawless victory! Continue!
And that's This Week in Gaming. I'm your host, Naomi Kyle. I had such a blast. There was so much news to cover this week. Thank you for tuning in. And shout out to my co-writer, Josh Seaman, for helping me put the show together every week. Don't forget to let me know what you're playing and what you think about all the big announcements by tagging me at Naomi Kyle on social. From all of us here at This Week in Gaming, we wish you a gaming-filled week. See you later.
This Week in Gaming is an iHeartRadio Canada podcast. Subscribe to this podcast on iHeartRadio or wherever you get your podcasts. Download the iHeartRadio app for more podcasts just like these.